Assalamu alaikum. Okay, before I go on, I need to figure this thing out. Guys, Assalamu alaikum, Hifsha. How are you doing? Okay, we are here. All right. So, this is a little weird, okay, with the IG thing, because I usually go live in my Facebook, which is a lot, I would say, easier in this sense. Can you see and hear me properly?
I can. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, I got my favorite filter on.
Yes, me too.
Because we don't have lighting in here. We are both from Canada, if you guys don't know already. So, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Tuesdays with Dr. T. So, today I have a very special guest. Why she's special? Because she's a lot like me on the journey of making an impact in our autism community, whereby we want to bring in lots of new inspirations, research-based findings, and all the things that will help you and your child to become the best version of yourself. Okay, so today we have Natalie, right? Natalie Pelto. The first time I saw her, I was like, wow, she's such a gorgeous lady. And I'm like, I gotta, talk to her and find her beauty secrets. Okay. So without
Filters.
further ado, filters. Okay. So welcome you all, whoever is joining. So we have Shawly Inspires. We have, there are some names that not the main name of people. So yeah, welcome you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today we have Natalie. She's a optimal wellness facilitator with 7 nutritional specialties. Wow. You are wowing my hijab off. Okay, so usually people say wowing my pants off, and you are wowing my hijab off. So 7 nutritional specialties and a background in frontline healthcare. Mashallah, that's really nice. So Natalie specializes in helping families of severe autism children find their voices and reclaim lost milestones through lifestyle practice. So her own son was once severe nonverbal and has been released from all diagnoses. So let's start from there. Released. The word released really made a indentation in my heart. So tell me more about it. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so it's really fun. First of all, I want to say thank you. And number two, I'm the one who reached out because I wanted to let everybody know that in this kind of community, there's, we can align with people who are very much so like ourselves. And when I really saw you speak about the way that you intermingled lifestyle and mindset and all of these things, it really it warms my heart. It makes me feel so hopeful for autism communities. It's so exciting.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now I'm blushing.
Oh, I love it. Look at this. I love you. Follow you both. You are both doing amazing things. Love it. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my story especially with being released from our diagnosis was kind of an interesting journey because I had a pediatrician who, in the small town that I live in, has to come from a bigger city. And so I had multiple meetings with her, constantly telling me that I needed to put this diagnosis on my son. He needed to have it. It was so necessary, or he would not succeed in school. And so we went through the therapies, and this was one thing that really irked me a little bit, and I'll just share vulnerably. It's something that
we're seeing. All about, our show is all about being vulnerable and bringing the real truth. So you have the floor, man.
Yeah. So one of the things when I went for my diagnosis or for our meeting was that she totally blindsided me and told me, "Oh, I think your son is autistic." Like she didn't have any, I don't want to say that the word is bedside manner, but she really didn't. She just assumed, I guess, from her perspective that I already understood this process, that I already knew that that's what we were doing. And for me, I will vulnerably say that although my son was like severe nonverbal, I was going in there thinking that I was going to be getting a speech referral.
Yeah.
And then to be told that my son, like it floored me. Like I walked out of there feeling like a totally different person. So yeah, when we see that, like I understand, like I so understand families that are not expecting that as well, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
And so what our journey was is a lot of meetings, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
therapy that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then finally, I accidentally came upon lifestyle and nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
coming from a healthcare background, this was like the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I hadn't tried.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
safe. And it seemed
Yeah.
so possible. So when we went on this journey and we started to see changes, this pediatrician would basically told me this to my face with all of a room full of other adults. She said, I have never met such a tiger in a room that will fight for her son. And I really kind of understood how hard at that point it would be to fight for a child that's getting
Yeah.
this diagnosis. And fast forward to a year later of us continuing on a lifestyle journey, and we went to our last pediatrician meeting. And I'll never forget it because I was a little bit upset when I left, because I walked in, my son engaged, my son was speaking to her, my son was very, very like playing with his toys and very like answering all her questions. And
Mm-hmm.
she looked at him and she said, and she looked at me and she said, well, I guess we were wrong.
Uh-huh.
She didn't
Same
ask,
here.
she didn't ask what we did though. She had no interest,
Yeah.
which broke my heart because I
They
thought to
even would say
myself,
something like, please don't say about that. I don't want to hear.
yeah.
Right away.
And I was just like, what about all these other kids? You treat probably 200, 300 children that have autism. You don't care that all of a sudden you see something that's like this this different. So
That's
anyway,
an
so that was it.
anomaly.
So from that moment on, I remember thinking, okay, so we were released from care, and then one amazing, amazing day that really kind of solidified this journey for me that made me feel so lighthearted was about 6 months later after this, after we'd been released from everything and we were no longer even in speech or anything like that. I got a phone call for the AAC device because there was such a long wait. It was almost 12 months. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember answering the phone and this lady was on. She's like, okay, so if your son is still nonverbal, we're ready to give you this machine to help him communicate. And there was no better feeling than telling her, we don't need that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so then I became very immersed in nutrition and lifestyle. I fell in love with this world underneath a world because I'm from healthcare. So it was like, a whole other way of thinking and seeing opened up to me, right? It was so amazing. And so, yeah, so then we just continued and then I started to teach others and it's been just a journey from there. My son is 13 now.
Mashallah.
Yeah,
Mashallah. Mashallah. Wow. Teenager.
I
I got a lot of
know.
love from you because mine is just like 5.5. So I am anticipating all the teenage dramas. You will be able to help us with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of points came out from your work, the stuff that you have shared. So it's like the one thing is forcing to get diagnosed. So even it was my experience as well, because I was like, you need the diagnosis, which will help him. But the fact that when we diagnose and get a label, then we start accepting that label, there is a difference. I myself teach autism acceptance. There is a difference between accepting and just letting it be versus accepting and fighting to become the best version of
That's right.
possible. So there is a difference. That's not what it's supposed to be. So what's your take on those parents who are on the verge of, like, should it work for me or should it not work for me? Because my doctors are not saying anything about it. So should I do it? Should I not do it? What should you say about them?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love this conversation. I actually have it a lot. So the idea is like we have not our physicians today, and because I work with a physician, like my business partner's a physician as well, and she is all on board. Like she is talking to other physicians about this, and she had to take all this extra education to understand nutrition. She is 100%, right? So this is an example of our current physicians kind of mindset and education is that we are not there yet where the microbiome is even in textbooks yet, right? The gut brain connection, it's not there. So as of 2006, this is where 80 after that day is 80% of studies of the microbiome have been added. And it takes roughly 20 years, 10 years for peer-reviewed studies, 20 years for it to make it into a textbook. And so
Exactly.
it's like you guys that are learning this right now, you're all early adopters. Like we were
Exactly.
like beyond early adopters. We were like
Pioneers.
hoping that something would stick. We're like spaghetti
We are
throwers.
the pioneers. We are like, ain't nobody gonna tell me that my son is going to be nonverbal for all of his life. No, 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 no. I'm gonna do something about it.
Yeah, I will throw all the spaghetti at the wall to hope something sticks.
Something will. Something will.
Right? So
But
when that
the
happens,
good news for you all is that both of us, we teach you what really sticks.
yeah, yeah. After
We
many trial and errors.
yeah, we collapse the timeline that takes for you to reach
Yeah.
the goals that it took us maybe months or maybe years.
Oh my gosh, I'd say that from start to finish, our journey took 4 years.
Mm-mm.
And I think
For
now
us, about two.
from what I see you and from what I see myself do, it's like you can see families see massive changes from 3 to 6 months, and then it just progressively gets better. Totally
Yes.
different, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, no, I totally. So my other thing with telling them and having these conversations with their physicians is it's important. You don't have to convince them, because really all you have to tell a physician if you want to go on this journey, which if they don't support you, I would question that, because nobody ever got ill or was hurt by going on a lifestyle enhancing journey. You're not
Never.
using, you're not using weird, chelation. Not that I like, some people do and I've seen results. Don't get me wrong. I just have, as a frontline worker, I've seen chelation therapy go wrong. So for me, it was like always about safety. It was always about, bringing in the things that are going to work and looking at a long game, not looking at a
Mm-hmm.
short-term symptom, suppression. It's like, what is the thing that's going to give us the longest results forever for our children?
Going to the root cause of
That's right.
everything
Yeah.
rather than treating the symptom. Let's
Yeah.
say you are having headache, you go to the doctor and then
Yeah.
your doctor gives you Tylenol, but actually your headache is coming on because you have a lot of workload at home or in your job, and you don't know how to cope with that. So if you solve those problems, you won't have headache, and then you won't need the Tylenol, which will cause havoc in your gut and also your liver, right?
That's right. And then one creates like this perpetual cycle
Cycle.
of
Exactly.
like being stuck,
Cycle.
and at the end, I love the quote that says, when you take a medication, you're not just recovering from your illness, but you're also recovering from your medication.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
And
we are
so,
having lots of people joining in. Thank you so much, every single person who is joining here. Hi, we love you, and we are welcoming you to our today's conversation. You will learn a lot, tons. Just stick to the end, okay? So now, Natalie, I want you to share your honest thought on the term autism recovery. Ding, 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 ding.
yeah. Oh, I know. You know what? It's such a controversial term. And
Uh-huh.
I talk about this sometimes in my webinars when I get this question a lot. And I think there's so much stigma to understanding or even connecting. It's like we've become this separated community of it's them versus us. We
Yeah.
either fully accept it and don't want to do anything, or
Mm-hmm.
and the people on this side, they don't accept it and they're hurting someone on this side, right? Like it's become this divide. I don't believe that. I believe that truly recovery is possible depending on many factors. And I believe that ideally what we're looking for though is for independence and a life that is joyful. Like, I mean, the long goal is not them versus us. It's really how do we
Exactly.
create our children's future where they're
Mm-hmm.
thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And I will share that the autism mind, like my son, even though he has no diagnosis, his way of thinking is so empathetic and advanced. It's like I
Yeah.
almost feel like autistic kids are going to be like the leaders and trailblazers in green
Mm-hmm.
tech and in things that are going to change the world.
Yeah.
So I think, but they need to have their minds, right? They need to have that cognitive impact. They need to be
Exactly.
able, to be focused. So it's not an us versus them. It is very interesting. So I used to get a lot of people from the especially adult autistic community that used to really feel like negate or get really frustrated with what I was doing. But that has
Mm-hmm.
changed. And that makes me happy because obviously the messaging that we are starting to bring across is more that we're not looking to say that there's something wrong with you, because there isn't. You are supporting, you are giving your gifts to the world, and you're so high functioning that you don't need my services. But there is this very big difference of low functioning, non-functioning, non-verbal, that are inside stuck trying to get out, that can possibly be at your level at some day where they can contribute, where they can feel that they are, you know, in the state
Part of it.
So I actually have a lot of autistic adults starting to follow me, which I thought was really interesting because I didn't know how that
Same
was going
here.
to go. Yeah.
Initially, like 2 years ago, I would have moms or
Yeah.
advocate moms, and then adults spamming me and you know,
Yeah.
literally pooping in my account. Okay, and I would get scared because as a neurodiverse, those of you who don't know that I am a neurodiverse adult, I had a very, very tough childhood. So, which is one of the reasons why I work and I do the work I do, is because I want to be the voice of those children who can become like me or more than me.
That's
Because
right.
it's totally possible. And you, the mom, needs to give the support, right support. Okay. It's not about, as I said a few moments ago, like it's accepting and working on it versus accepting and doing nothing. Like, if
Yeah,
you
I
love your
agree.
child. Another thing is, if you love your child, you will accept your child. Heck, I do accept my child. If anybody says he is less, I am going to tear him or her part by part. But I am also going to be teaching my son to be independent. Why? Because we are just the 1% of the whole entire population.
Yeah.
Awareness is good, but do you believe the 99% of the world will change the world for just 1% of us? It's
No.
not possible.
No.
And why would I want to be? And then some of the parents or adults will also say, like, you mean that we are broken? And I'm like, no. If a child cannot speak, he's crying because he has maybe tummy ache, maybe headache, because of all the fogs and stuff that creates a lot of physiological and emotional stress. The child is literally struggling. Yes, the child is struggling. Okay. So anyways, from there comes the next bombshell. What's your take on virtual autism?
Virtual autism?
Exactly. Have you heard about it? This is the first
No.
time. Okay. So here's the take. If somebody sees your child recovering, then they will slap a tag that your child had virtual autism, because real autism cannot have improvements like you were showing. So
Yes.
I am
Okay. Like Matt. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
okay.
So I will state this is just stats. Like this is just like actual fact is that currently in our day and age, the chances of having genetic autism is still 1 in 10,000, and yet we're seeing 1 in 30. So regressive autism is a completely different ballgame and is 100% linked, study based, with dysbiosis. And as soon as you start, and because there are over 500 to 600 epigenetic expressions happening in autism, in the entire like true autism genetic expression, we'll say, like what is happening underneath the surface, there is so much that we have empowerment over. And so if we're looking at, and I'm gonna like, I don't know how you feel about this, so I'm just gonna say what I'm seeing myself is when I have people talk to me and I'm seeing that, the TAC, like the TAC, they're saying that right now 1 in 30 children are being diagnosed with autism, and I'm seeing 1 in 15, or one in like half of them are not even seeking a diagnosis yet. So the numbers are actually quite higher. So when the last time we saw such a big surge, and this is just like correlation, we'll call it, the last time we saw such a big surge in a condition was actually when smoking was promoted and we ended up with lung cancer. And people made the correlation because all of a sudden we had all of these deaths with lung cancer. This is a very similar graph that we're seeing from the days when we started creating chemicals and petrochemicals in the world, and man-made toxins in the last 80 years. That surge, that's what they're all following. Okay, in 80 years, genetics do not change that quickly unless there is an external factor.
And I would just say, listen, you are a mom, and you definitely you are a lion. So how does lion teach their cubs to fight? They are there around to protect, and also they give the space for the cub to fight, rather than me being, oh, this is my precious child, don't touch or don't say anything wrong. just try on your own, because health, trying to make your child healthy will not torture your child. I don't know, for some reason, in a lot of Facebook groups, if I used to go there, but now I don't, because it's the most
I know, me
toxic place
neither.
on earth. Most toxic place on earth. So they would say, like, if I am saying to somebody who's saying, like, my son is eating only Doritos, chicken nugget, and cola, and I was like, wow, can you try to give him fruits? Oh no, that will be torturing him. I was like, what does your doctor say? My doctor agrees with that. That's torturing him. I was like, wow.
That is, wow, that is very much, yeah. So I haven't seen that extreme, but yeah, but I do see the mindset. And I actually see the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I see that in our society everywhere. I had a relative who I love, by the way, like at the beginning of our journey. This is just like a little
Mm-hmm.
story there that's similar, that couldn't understand why I wouldn't allow my son to have Cheetos, and
Mm-hmm.
did off like completely. And I'm going to answer this question that I'm seeing come through, children
Yeah.
as well, healthy eating. And I will answer that question in just a second.
Yeah. Keep
But
asking
yes,
questions, by the way.
yeah. Yeah. So just so just back, they wanted to give, they couldn't understand why that was a no. And she just really was like, well, you're hurting him. I said, no, giving him that Cheeto is poison. So you're technically, that's, you just got to change your mindset, look at the ingredients. But it's this mindset that we have given our health halo to the grocery stores and to the
Mm-hmm.
governments that, when I did, if you ever want to see a really good documentary that's free, you can like YouTube it. It's called The Men Who Made Us Fat. And when I saw what the public tried to fight, I like to say the public tried to fight for us. They did. Like when in 1970, when high fructose corn syrup and sugar became so prevalent, they did go to court. They did go to court to put that through, to
Mm-hmm.
make them label it better, to make them not market to our children. And do you know what ended up happening? The courts threw it out and said it is the mother's responsibility for what their children eat, and they can market the way they want.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you want to see, it's actually quite long. It's like 3 hours, but it really shows the moment that our society very much so changed in the foods that they ate. And I thought it was not to do with autism, but it just really is an eye opener to the world
Yeah.
about how much we have lost control in our third generation of being brought up in a world that just doesn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and oh,
Box
sorry, I'm going to
macaroni
answer
and
that
cheese.
quick question, which was, did I use any herbs or supplements to detox my child? And that is actually no. I didn't. I do use essential oils, but I didn't use them to detox my child. I prefer to actually use food. There are so many, and by herbs, I don't exactly know what you're asking. If you're asking about supplements, I don't lean towards supplements. I actually use things like cilantro and parsley. Those are
Those are
extremely,
herbs.
yeah. So those are herbs. So those are the herbs that I
Yeah.
have that I would use for detoxing.
Detox
Just
juices,
yeah,
detox soups, bone
yeah,
broths, all of those things.
yeah. That's it. Like
Yeah,
that's all. I lean towards food. Whatever will
totally.
feed the microbiome.
Yeah, I think we would do another part of this one where we will talk more about the food,
Process.
how to, heal the child's gut with food. Okay.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. I haven't talked with her yet, but I'm just telling in front of everybody that I will have a second part with that.
Yeah, we
Okay.
will do this again for
So,
sure.
inshallah. So, if you were to give 5 pieces of advice to an autism mom who wants to move forward, what would they be?
So the first one is mindset. I know that it seems like so
Basic,
basic or
but
seems
it's
so,
overlooked.
yeah,
Yes,
and unattainable in a way,
yes,
right? Because we're
yes.
constantly in trauma, or we're constantly in high alert or vigilance. But the mindset is such a big deal, because if you don't believe enough to make the vision real,
Mm-hmm,
then you have to believe enough for not just you, but you have to believe for your child and for your entire family at home. That includes
mm-hmm,
if you have a husband, that includes if you have extended families. Like the boundaries that go up for autism, like not and for autism support, where they can actually get to that independence and hit those milestones again,
mm-hmm,
is pretty profound.
mm-hmm.
And so that's my first one, is mindset. And the second one is actually overcoming picky eating. If you do not
Mm-hmm.
overcome picky eating, the rest is so much harder.
Yeah.
The picky
And it's
eating,
possible.
oh my
It's
goodness,
actually
yes.
possible.
It's
It
so
doesn't
you
have
can
to be
make it.
fighting
You
with
can.
the child.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like I currently have 100% success rate with my picky eating. Some of them take longer, some of them take less. It just really
Mm-hmm.
depends on usually the parent's ability to be present and
Mm-hmm.
their mindset shifts around picky eating.
Mm-hmm.
I had
Gold,
I
gold.
had I had one person who blew my mind. She even stretched my own mind as what was possible because she showed up like at 110%, and she was able because she was at home and she was pregnant, and like her ability to overcome picky eating, it was less than 12 weeks for a severe picky eater, and like I had never seen that happen before, where like I had a checklist of all like brain development foods, and she like had already she went through all of it, and her child was totally different.
Mashallah, mashallah.
Right.
It's totally possible.
So
Exactly.
the picky eating is such a big thing.
It's such a big thing.
Yeah,
What's
and
the
the
third
third one
one?
is I like to call it, I actually focus heavily, and while you're using picky eating, I mean diversity is important. Focusing heavily on microbiome is to me like the missing link that all the physicians are not quite talking about yet it's the thing that has the most impact on neuropsychiatric disorders, which autism is kind of umbrellaed. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
that that is an area, and there are so many ways to do that. That's obviously a talk we're going to have like next time, but it
Inshallah.
is probably my like it's like all the rest, they put the key in the lock, and then that's what opens the door.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the best way I can kind of describe it. My
Mm-hmm.
number 4 is actually too focused on detox. I know that that's very controversial in the autism world, but when you're using food, it's very different because you're opening the pathways naturally using food, and you're making sure that they're, excreting all of the things that they're supposed to before you start with, herbs and things like that. But at the same time, I think that it's such an important thing, and it's where most people see the most dramatic changes. It's just as
Yes.
toxins are removed, they do need to be excreted. That's
Mm-hmm.
just like, yeah,
Definitely.
the safety part, right? Like we really need to talk about safety first. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think that the last one that I would say, if I had to think back, is like all the lifestyle pieces, because it's not just about food. As much
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
food is foundational, it's about your connections to nature. It's about making sure that your resilience is created by if your children have had trauma. It's a whole story, and each family is going to have their own unique version of it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's how do we take micro actions to elevate connections, and I like the way you said that you have a cub that also has to fend for themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
most autistic families will try to nurture but protect their children and not allow them to be in that area where they're going to have to create adaptability.
Yeah.
the, the
Stretching boundaries.
yeah, and
Very
the
important.
therapy communities really focus heavily on, in my opinion, is everything is about routine. Everything is about routine. Everything is about routine. The reason they do that, and
Circus training.
pretty much, and you know what ends up happening though is that memory is not the same place if the brain is routine. Memory is
Mm-hmm.
impacted by actually what you eat and gut messaging. So it's just one of those things that we're focusing heavily on routine so that they don't have meltdowns. But then as soon as something is off their routine, there is dysregulation. So having them
Exactly.
in areas where they're safe and able to kind of have interactions that are not going to be perfect are the best way to allow your children to really socially connect, which is linked to longevity and to
Mm-hmm.
being able to become more independent.
Yeah. I think we have said a lot today, although we have a lot of time left, but I want to reiterate on the mindset part.
Yes.
Why? Because in my opinion and my experience, what I saw was this. If I didn't have the mindset, I wouldn't have started fighting and seeking my own way. I
Mhm.
would have just waited for everything else. Because as a pharmacist with 16 plus years of seeing what pharmaceutical companies does and
Yeah.
whatnot, so and the doctors, because I went to a very renowned pediatrician in our area of Ottawa. So I took Mohammed to her first when we landed as an immigrant, new immigrant, and he was very, very severe, very, and I was suicidal, okay, because I'm
Mm.
a neurodiverse. I had my own sort of stuff going on. I was pregnant, newly birthed, single low income family. So stack every single thing you can think of, everything was against me. Okay. The only thing that has helped me was my mindset. Why? Because my mom always said this: your child is your asset, nothing else. No amount of jewelries, no amount of, uh, books and stuff and everything else
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the asset. Your child is your asset. So I thought, what can I do for my child so that he becomes an asset to himself, not just to me, to
Ah,
himself.
so good.
He has to, because I am an asset to myself. If I am separated from my husband, from my parents, I can survive. If I was dependent on my parents or dependent on my husband, then I would have been like always begging to be taken care of, and that's not actually empowering. So let's talk a little bit more about the mindset piece.
Mm.
So how do you suggest we start working on our mindset?
I believe so for me, and I'm going to share vulnerably, my journey was a little bit different, was, well, probably similar to a lot of moms out there.
Mm-hmm.
It was more, you want to start, but you're
Mm-hmm.
getting stuck in
Yeah.
other people's stories. And then those
Yes.
stories have become your own. And
Yeah.
then it's, so for me, for what I like to see people do is reframing their thoughts, which I know you do a lot of NLP, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely amazing. That is something
Thank
that
you.
for that is really necessary. Either cognitive behavioral therapy, which I know sounds weird, but it's all about the words you speak to yourself, the
Mm-hmm.
quality questions you ask, and
Mm-hmm.
building out the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to reframe. I like to do what we call it, like the useful belief creations.
Mm-mm.
I like to flip flop statements with families
Mm-mm.
at the beginning.
Sleight of mouth.
Yeah. And then I like to
We have a
remind,
lot of tools up our sleeves. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, mindset is everything.
Everything.
Sometimes it's because it's true, right? So, and this is something I've noticed even with a lot of my clients. If you're getting stuck, usually
Mm-mm.
it's not your child. It's
It's
usually,
you.
yeah. And it's not to say that in a rude way or a mean way, or it's just that I see it as someone who can see it from an external source. I used to do it too, right? I'm sure you did
Mm-hmm.
it too. You had to
Fear of
go,
failure. Exactly. Fear of failure. Fear of failure.
yeah.
As human beings, let me say something because it just came right away. So this will help everybody. Everybody. So all human beings have 6 core needs. Tony Robbins says that, right?
Yeah, he
So
does.
your top most 2 important core needs will dictate how you take actions, how you make decisions. Okay. So if, and the brain, it's so weird. It feels safe even in unsafe situation. Example, case in point. There are lots of women who stays in abusive relationship. They
Yeah.
are adult. They can run away. They're not kids, being tortured by parents who don't know how to run away. You are an adult woman, but you still stay in an abusive relationship. Why? Because staying in this relationship is more comfortable. It's safe to your brain
Mm-hmm.
because you know what's the outcome is. He might punch you and you know how it feels, but your brain doesn't know how will it feel to run away and seek a new life. That is new territory, and that
Yeah.
is what we are scared of, because we have a reptilian brain and we have like thousands of years of being cavemen and whatnot. So
Yeah.
we are fearful of stuff
Of
that is
change.
actually good for us.
Yeah.
Exactly. Learning those things and understanding your needs, going to the core. For me, it's all about just going to the core, finding the core of why somebody is not able to do something,
Yeah.
find the linchpin, and then tell the mom, like, open the eyes, like, this is what you are doing. The other day, one of my mom, I think she's here also. So she was saying that, you know what, I have been trying to teach my son to potty train, and I myself stop him, not him. Now that, because I was going through a very
Yeah.
in-depth training yesterday, so she was like, now I know it was me who was keeping my son stuck. Why? Because I
Yeah.
was scared. I was like, yeah, girl, that's what I have been
It's
saying
like the
for the
light
last
bulb.
4 months.
There is nothing
Exactly.
greater.
Bing.
It's so true though. And sometimes it's often not seeing, it's allowing the parent to imagine themselves in their child's shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you show up for picky eating and you are like this, and a child is looking at you, and they are so connected to their parents in a way that they're,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, that food,
Energetically,
that food's not safe. Look at her.
it's
She's
not safe.
like, ah.
It's not safe. Exactly. That's why you need to try, according to experts, like 15 times, 30 times to try one food. And I'm like, I just gave like 2 or 3 times and it was okay. Because I said like, this is
Yeah.
your food and you are eating it, okay? Not
Well,
in
I'm
a
glad that
torturous
worked.
way.
That's amazing.
No, not in
I
a
think that
torturous way. I was
there
like,
was some, I think there was a variety. Some of those worked and some of them didn't.
yeah, exactly. It's quite good. You try,
Yeah.
it's okay, but if you, because listen, everything in this world is made of energy,
Yeah.
okay? And we vibrate at certain frequencies, and our emotions have certain vibrations as
Mm-hmm.
well. So a mother who's being fearful, she's vibrating at 30 megahertz. And then the child who's like, okay, because our children, they are part of us genetically, energetically,
Oh,
physiologically,
yeah.
biologically. So if you are vibrating at a lower frequency, your child will also have the fear. It's as simple and as clear as that.
Yeah, and it's for them, for us, we don't even notice it, but for them, we're screaming it out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's just such.
Just like you will hear more clearly if your eyes are closed.
Yes.
They, even though they cannot speak, they feel it 10 times more.
Yeah.
They feel it 10 times more. My next question is, what's your take on the therapies?
That's a fair question, and it's interesting because I know therapists, but
Mm-hmm.
for us, and I'm gonna swap this, and I'm gonna word it because you worded it so beautifully. So I'm not even gonna take credit for this, but it's like, how
Okay.
do you consistently try to put information into a brain that is not able to process it?
Mm-mm.
And that's just it. Like, when my son did speech therapy, it did nothing, and he loved his speech therapist. Like, she's a phenomenal lady, I still know her, but it didn't
Mm-hmm.
work at all because I live in a
Mm-hmm.
tiny town. So what ended up happening, though, when we started our journey, all of a sudden it started working.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, he's engaging, but it's not because of the therapy. It was because his brain was able to um, have that information that goes through
Mm-hmm.
our sensory, processing. It was able to
Mm-hmm.
connect, and he was able to see it and to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
It's therapy, in my opinion, and especially feeding therapy did not work for us. Um, Occupational therapy did not work for us. We did not have the option for ABA. I don't particularly love the reward system, and what I've learned from ABA, it's like, it's hit and miss. Some people have really great therapists that I don't know if their children may connect to the therapist more, but the
Mm-hmm.
results will always be the same, is that they don't work unless you actually address the root
Mm-hmm. The
cause.
core issues.
Yeah. So
The
I
core
don't,
issues.
if it was me and I had a do-over, or if I'm someone, or this is my recommendation, if you are someone who is paying like upwards to $10,000 a month for therapy, which I'm seeing, which is like just mind-blowing, because I know therapy wait times are more than a year, sometimes 2 years, is like, you could be doing something at home. I felt so disempowered when I dropped my child off, and then I would go and I didn't know what to do with him at home.
Mm-hmm.
My power and my feelings of inadequacy were
Oh,
so high. It was like I was being
shattering.
stripped of being able to raise my child. And so I feel that, like, the thing that we're teaching you, like, that we are doing this together, is that it's in your hands. And
Yeah.
I see this guilt come through all the time. I feel like I'm not doing enough, like I'm not enough for my child, or I'm not doing enough. And I'm just like, but you have the power. And I hope that we inspire you to know that actually you are the only person who can do this for your
Only.
child.
Only.
Yeah. There's
And
no
also
therapy
take
that's
care
going
of
to do it for
yourself.
you.
And also take care of yourself so that you are,
Yeah.
because I say it all the time, you as a mom, you are the tree. So your root needs to be very well
Deep.
grounded, baby. Otherwise, your all the leaves are gonna be like blowing here and there. Okay. So
Yeah.
you are the root, you are the tree, and your kids are the fruits. If you want your fruits to grow and flourish and bloom, you gotta bloom yourself as well.
That's such a
Because
good
your
way of
child
looking at it. I love it.
your child will move as much as you can move. Your child
That's
will
so good.
run as much as you can run. Okay. So we have had a very wonderful, I feel like I'm going to cry, really, because it's really hard to find people who are on the same understanding,
Mhm.
because there are so many of the kids who are really waiting for us to show up, to have the faith that it's going to work out, even though the world says
Yeah.
negatively. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like Copernicus, Socrates, and all, even Einstein was laughed at,
Yeah,
right?
he
But
was.
then now we are like, oh my God, Einstein is the biggest thing in the world. But you guys, when we say something, you don't have to just take everything face value. First of all, do your own research. There are lots, tons of stuff online already, research based, that's saying the same thing that we are saying.
Yeah.
Just because your doctor isn't saying that, we have already said, because they are not learned in it, their textbook don't have those information yet. And as a pharmacist, let me say this: one, by the time a drug comes to you, it's already 8 to 12 years old.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? So the thing is, let's say I am a research scientist, I have found something, I will go for clinical trial, and then even the clinical trial, they don't include all categories. A lot of the clinical trials of drugs don't have female as
Nope.
subjects. Why? Because we have our own hormonal
That's
stuff that can
right.
give the negative result. And we keep on. Another thing, research is very much important to follow, but there are researches also to be staying away from, because not all researchers are equal, not all research papers are
No.
equal.
And not all research papers are not being interwoven
Truthful.
with funding from companies that would have their own interests at
Exactly.
heart.
Exactly, I vouch for that. I saw that in my PhD, and
Mhm.
that's when I was like, oh my God, I wanted to be a doctor. I stopped being a doctor and I went to being a pharmacist. And then I went and I then became a pharmacist to save the world. And then I saw the medicine that is supposed to save the world is killing the world. So I stopped that and went to the academic world. And then
Yeah.
even the academic world has like cheatings going on. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God,
Where, how do
why
we do
can't.
it? How do we do it? And we do by finding each other, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I watched the healthcare change around me in the last 10, probably 10 years the most,
Yeah.
where it was like, wow, this is not even the place I ever worked at. This is now a place being run by people up here. It's no longer about how our patients are feeling.
It's
And
all
so
about
when I saw
patient.
that, I also agree with that, is that like it's like we start to venture out slowly and slowly and slowly, and then all of a
Mm-mm.
sudden we're just like, no, this is not, you just can't align anymore.
Exactly.
And so, and
Exactly.
then we find each other here though, and we build communities
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
change the
Inshallah,
world.
we are building community. So let's wrap up with asking you, Natalie, from Rebel Spectrum. By the way, I love that name. Okay. So what's in store for you in the near future?
It's all going to be at so I wrote this recently in my stories, and I'll just repeat it because it's true. You have to have, if you have a purpose in life, it has to be so big that when you think about it, it can make you cry.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I have shivers.
yeah, I got chills too. It does. It
Me
gives me
too.
chills because truthfully, when I think of a child speaking that has not been
Mhm.
able to speak for so long, or it's the, it does. It brings
Best
tears to my
feelings ever.
eyes. Yeah.
Best feelings ever.
So I foresee us connecting a lot more as well. So I foresee a lot of collaboration, not just that way, but to trailblaze a
Mm-mm.
vision for our future that we're going to have to
Mhm.
hold so big and so hard that it's going to make our own journeys through autism look very
Mhm.
small.
Very small.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have
It's going to be
so
big.
much chills.
Yeah,
Love it.
those
Let's do
children,
it. Mhm.
they are the future. There is something about the way their minds work. I think that Zach Bush is a doctor.
Mhm.
He's a physician of a few different things, I think. But really,
Mhm.
the way that he also words when he treats autistic children that have had that turn of independence, he says it too. Like he really, their minds are this unique, empathetic way of seeing
Mhm.
the world that's so beautiful that we
Yeah,
need, we're craving.
that
But
is.
anyways, that's my
That's
plan.
it. We are here to do that, inshallah. So for those of us who wants to, have questions, please leave your question below so that we can come back and then follow up with them. And if you have any queries or any suggestions for any upcoming episodes, please leave them as well. Go follow Rebel Spectrum, Natalie, one of my cool friends.
And I
Okay.
saw a lot of my
So,
good friends on here too. I hope you guys are following
yeah.
Autism Success Academy too.
Thank you so much. I will love you guys to stick around because we are bringing in more fun and more real life changing information at your doorstep, or I would say at your what's that? What is this thing called? Smartphone.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, I mean, we really it
Okay.
is a world that connects us this way. We may as well use it for
Yeah.
the good.
Yeah. Inshallah. Inshallah. So I'll see you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Until next time. Allah Hafiz. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. I don't even know how to close this.